Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Craig Brown. I'm the chairman of the SIMPO, Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization. Calling this meeting to order. It's 3:30 on November 15th, 2023. And with that, could I ask our clerk to go through the roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Chair Brown?
Here.
Vice Chair Hughes?
Here.
Just so everybody's aware of it before we get started, you got to keep your finger on the microphone button, because if you don't, you lose yourself. So.
Secretary Treasurer Good?
Present.
Member Armstrong?
Here.
Member Knight? Is online. Member Palguda?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, the meeting guidelines. As a reminder to those attending the meeting telephonically, please keep your phone on mute until it is your turn to speak. Members of the public desiring to address the committee are subject to the following. Decisions to allow members of the public to speak is left to the discretion of the chair. A person may only speak if called upon by the chair, and speaking is limited to 3 minutes. The chair may limit the number of speakers. A speaker shall not be disruptive, nor shall the speaker be disrespectful towards the chair, the committee, or others. And except during the call to the public, a speaker may only address the specific agenda item then being discussed. The chair may terminate a person's speaking time for violation of the following. Committee and audience members shall not engage in disruptive behavior during a meeting, including speaking when it is not his or her time to speak, and a person may be ejected from the meeting for violation of this guidance. Okay, with that, I'm going to all stand and say the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Title IV policy. Desi, I'm going to let you tell everybody what Title IV policy is, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Title VI policy. SIMPO complies with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and related non-discrimination statutes and regulations in all programs and activities. Members of the public may review the SIMPO Title VI plan and submit a self-identification survey by accessing the SIMPO website.
Okay. With that, thanks. With that, we're going to move on to call to the public, and that's item number 4 on our agenda. Call to the public. This item provides an opportunity for presentation of comments by the public on subjects not on the agenda. Please complete a request for public input card and submit it to the SIMPO staff prior to the beginning of the meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Any members of the public attending virtually wishing to address the board may request to do so. Speaker provide a written comment by using the raise my hand or Q&A comments feature available through the webinar. Board members shall not discuss or take action on matters raised during the call to the public. The board may direct staff to study the matter or direct that matter to be rescheduled for consideration at a later date. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak to the public? I
Mr.
see
Chairman,
no hands.
Mr. Chairman, we've received requests to speak, but they're all on the Sundog Connector study, which is item number 13. To the best of my knowledge, no one filled out a card for just the call to the public, for your information, sir.
So is there any other cards in regards to Sundog Connect? We'll hear those when we get to that item.
Mr. Chair, this is Gary Knight. I guess I missed roll call, but I am
All
present.
right, what we're doing is we're trying to keep the mic. Okay, discussion and possible action to appoint a new representative and alternate to the Rural Transportation Committee. Oh, wait, he's not here. Kevin's not here. Kevin around?
Well, just for clarification, Mr. Chair, Kevin is not here yet, so if we can delay that item, you are reading item number 8, which is actually okay if you want to focus on that, but item number 7, when Kevin arrives, we can address that.
That's why I went over item number 7 to item 8. because
I
he's
knew
not
you
here.
were a step ahead of us. Thank you.
I'm a little ahead of you on this one. Okay. Discussion and possible action to appoint a new representative and alternative to the Rural Transportation Advocacy Council. Positions are effective as of January 1st. This is one of the committees that we participate in that is statewide. It predominantly deals with issues regarding rural areas in Arizona, and that primarily the 13 counties other than Maricopa and the one in Tucson. So it's a very important place. Most of our items end up on the Rural Transportation Council's desk, sort of speaking, and it's like all of our items are basically rural items. We don't usually talk about other projects, like I-17 is not one of our projects, even though at one point in time we did take some action on it. So anyway, moving forward, what we currently have is Mr. John Hughes, Mayor of Dewey Humboldt, is our current representative of RTAC, and Mr. Armstrong, who's councilman in Chino Valley, is his backup. But due to circumstances, I've been told that they may decide that they want to switch places. Is that so?
Yep. It's an honor to serve where needed, sir. Same here. So, yes.
All right. So with that, does anybody have a problem with that, or is there anybody else who would like to jump in and take that position? No? No?
Well, in that case,
There you go.
can I make a motion, Chairman?
You certainly can.
I'd like to move to name Tom Armstrong as our RTAC representative for 2024 and John Hughes as the alternative.
And with that, I'll make a second to that motion and move on with the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Have no opposition. Okay. Kevin comes in, so raise his hand. Okay. Okay. Item number 9, discussion and possible action to hold election of officers for executive board chair, vice chair, and secretary treasurer. These will be effective January 1st through December 31st of this next year. So I'm going to make a motion just so we can move along, is to all the current people holding office, which would be myself, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Good, Mr. Palguda, just stay in our positions for next year. Is that all right with the rest of you?
So move.
So moved. Okay, and I'll
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're done with that one. Okay, discussion and possible action to approve the 2024 executive board meetings schedule. This is a little more tricky. So we have some clarification that we're going to have to make in regards to the locations where these are going to take place, because they're going to be working in this room and moving it downstairs. Board of Supervisors is going to maybe having some things done in our offices. So we're going to have to really turn around and see what we're going to use for a location to meet on a regular basis. Now, we haven't asked Prescott Valley yet. So, and we haven't asked Chino Valley how they feel about it. So we need to talk about this and decide what we're going to do, Vinny.
Mr. Chairman, you are on a roll. I am so impressed with you right now. You're just covering these items way better than I do. Way more charming. I love it. You're on a roll.
I took my medication.
You did. Can I borrow some of that, please? All right. So here we go. Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Yes. So staff did reach out to Yav. Well, let me back up one step. The last couple of years, Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have been rotating the meetings from different locations. In spirit, staff loves that. In actual delivery, it is the biggest pain in the neck ever, because all of you have a very unique system that works for you. And when you welcome us as visitors, we're always needing to adjust. We appreciate your staff. They're very accommodating, but as you remember to some of the past meetings, we've hit some real technology roadblocks. So to help out with the effectiveness of the staff, it is the recommendation of me to you that we pick one location. Our preference would be Yavapai County since SIMPO operates through their system. We did reach out to the county to clear the calendar, but as of 10, 20 minutes ago, there was a snafu and we got kicked out of that room. So let me try and clarify. We did reach out to all of you to ensure that the fourth Wednesday of the month, you all are available. That was good to go. So I just need to work with Maury, who walked in the room a few minutes ago, and his staff. There's Maury. We'll work with him and his staff and figure out a meeting location. But the piece of paper that was provided to you does say the Board of Supervisors meeting room, fourth Wednesday of the month at, I believe, 1 p.m. or I think it's 1 p.m. Fourth Wednesday of the month, 1 p.m. It does state the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors meeting room, so I would encourage your action, approve everything, keeping in mind that I'll work with Maury on a location, if that's acceptable.
And I'm going to assume that this location and the date and time where it's going to be and what day of the week will be posted on our website so everybody's aware of it. That way you check it before you come to the meeting, and hopefully it'll tell you where we're going to be. So, am I right?
You are correct, sir.
Good. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a statement that although the intention of our city hall and a relocation of the council chambers may occur sometime in the near future, it's not going to probably be done even next year. So if it turns out that you have some conflict with the county facilities, we may be able to accommodate you here in our council chambers.
Once in a while.
Once in a while. Okay. No, that's right.
Okay, so we got that information. Is that Prescott stepped up and has said that we can use theirs. I'm sure we can always go to Prescott Valley. No, we can't? You're not going to let us go there? Did we leave it dirty the last time? No. So anyway, we'll work it out, but make sure you check our website before you decide you're going to come visit us, okay? So that way you'll be in the right spot, hopefully. All right.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the schedule as stated with changes to the location.
Thank you,
Second.
John, in a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Palguda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're on item number 11, review and discussion possible action to approve the advertisement of the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. Vinny, I'm going to give you the opportunity to tell us what that's all about.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. So it is in your packet, but I did create a PowerPoint just so we can hit some of the highlights. Am I working it or you? All right, I'll try. All right, just want to hit some highlights. We did bring the draft scope to you last month. We have continued to have discussions with you, your staff, the technical committee, but you do have the completed draft. We also have our attorney in the room, Tom Cack. He's SIMPO's representative. He did review the
Second.
Absolutely.
Stand up, let everybody know who you are. He's our lawyer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Tom. With that said, he has reviewed the legalese and has given his modifications. Those are already implemented as part of it. So this PowerPoint slide that isn't working yet. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. My bad. Okay. Yeah, it's Bryn, can you, or whoever has the main computer, who has the main computer? It's my clicker's not working. My clicker isn't working. It needs Craig's medication. It'll work in a minute.
Do Give us a moment, folks. This is not unusual for us to have technical.
Well, as they're doing that, and I don't have it, do you have a copy of the PowerPoint? If you bring it up, I can follow along. This is the 25-year transportation plan. Again, this is one of the required, whoever's working it, that's the page that we're on, perfect. 25-year transportation plan. This looks at the next 25 years. Currently, SIMPO is operating under the years 2020 to 2045. What we're now looking to do is to update that. This is a federal requirement of us to look to the next 25 years. It includes our highways, roadways, bicycles, pedestrians, and transit. We do update this plan every 5 years. It would take us around the planning process starting from about today when you're hopefully going to approve the RFP will last about the next 18 months. I want to emphasize that the authors of the document are you, are the local governments, are the public. It is you that puts this document together. We take into account the general plans that have been adopted for each of your communities or the ones that are about to be adopted. We take in data, staff, the public's input over that 18-month process. Next slide, please. So in your packet, you do have a request for proposals, an RFP. With your tentative approval, we hope to issue out this RFP this November 17th, this Friday the 17th. Those proposals will be due back to SIMPO Friday, January the 5th of 2024. We'll be bringing back with staff and technical's recommendation to you as a board in February to bring on a consultant, and we hope to kick off the project March of 2024. Next slide, please. So in your packet, you have detailed scopes. I'm just going to hit the headlines and the highlights. I hit some of these at the last board meeting. Again, task 1, there's 10 tasks. Task 1 is the project management, project overview, administration. Task 2 is the public engagement. We talked about this at the last meeting. We want to promote as much public engagement as we can. We realize that everybody has different abilities to either attend a meeting in person and or virtually, and we want to be able to provide as much accommodation as we can within that. We also acknowledge that there is a great deal of cost that can go to an in-person meeting, so we're trying to find the balance between providing virtual opportunities in person, again, trying to provide for the greatest engagement that we can. Task 3 looks at the SIMPO region. Again, SIMPO region's about 400 square miles, 145,000 people. One of the key areas that we look at is the social economic. Where are the people? What is the makeup of the population in this area? What are the current transportation conditions as they exist today? What will they look like over the next 25 years? Next page, please, or next slide. Task number 4, I would say, is really the heart of our 25-year transportation plan. It's the traffic model. This is important to highlight in that we use the expertise of consultants, we use technology to bring in information as it exists today. Where are the traffic in the community, in the region? Where do they work, go to school, go to the hospital? Whatever the travel patterns are, that's entered into the traffic model. That traffic model then shows things as they are today and begins to project them for the future. Again, it takes into account the general plans, the development, the growth as it is today, and as it's to be projected in the future. Again, that's why this is key that you and your staff are the primary authors of this. You're on the front lines knowing how your community is evolving and growing. This is looking at regionally significant routes. This is looking at roadways that are collectors and above, or collectors, arterials, and freeways. So it is looking at how the entire system is operating throughout the entire region. It is multimodal. So again, we're looking at bicycle, pedestrians, and transit. Task number 6, again, goes to those future conditions. What does the next 5, 10, and 25 years look like? What is the level of service today? And if we don't touch that system, what does it look like 25 years from now? It takes into account safety, pavement, time in traffic, speed. All these different things are a part of this plan, reliability of the system. Next slide, please. Task number 7 looks at the environmental quality in the area. So it looks at trails, at open space, at all those other things in our community that our EMAC committee has addressed, has talked about, and those things that interface with land use in our greater area. And it takes into account what does that look like again as it is today, and what is the future moving forward with that. Task number 8 is the recommended investment choices. It looks at how the system is performing. Again, how are we recognizing how it operates today, and how are we tracking that? How is that any improvement achieving certain targets and certain goals? These 3 terms of preservation, modernization, and expansion are pretty critical. And as we go through the planning process, we'll be asked of the greater public and then ultimately you as decision makers, when we have an opportunity to invest in the transportation system, what are your preferred areas of choice? Is it to more preserve the system we have, or is it to modernize or expand it? We understand that all of those are important priorities, but with limited funds, there is a balance to that. So we will be really probing that and attempting to get a greater understanding of this community, this region, and you as decision makers as to that investment. And then again, to the mobility of the greater community. Task 9 is the final plan. In our current document, it's 275 pages. Again, a very significant outcome of it is the priority project list. This is the list that identifies those key projects in the transportation network that rise to the top. We've used this list to pursue many different projects that we're working on now, or we will be working on in the near future. We have also used this priority list to work with our state legislature the last couple years. We were successful in using this list to get $9.9 million for Glassford Hill Road, and then this year to look at State Route 89 between 3 and 5 North. It's how those projects come to rise to the top, and that we can have the support that we've gone through this planning process, that there's a wealth of information really supporting that direction. And then finally, task 10 is grant assistance. So again, as you look at this document as a whole, it's important that we acknowledge what the hope is for the future. And then I'm probably most proud of that task 10, because SIMPO has been pretty active the last couple years of bringing around $30 million into our system through a variety of grants and other partnerships. So we don't just want to have a document that says, here's all the problems, go figure it out, but we want to be a part of the solution, and task 10 is that. Task 10 will then begin to help us identify ways of addressing those things. Next slide, please. Was that the final slide? Maybe. Might be. All right, with that said, so you have the, sorry about that. You have the completed packet in your packet. We do have a couple changes that Bryn handed to you just before the meetings, and this is dealing with task 4 and the traffic model. This was a change that was made after the TAC recommendation that is in your packet. What this is doing is we did follow up with ADOT, and what we had referenced in there at the time of the technical committee was that we would be able to use the ADOT traffic model. Come to find out, that's not necessarily a thing that we could use for something like this. So we removed the technical language that references the ADOT traffic model and the transit demand projection. Those are the things that have been changed. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, I do have most of the TAC here that I can see. The current chair of the TAC is Dan Cherry from Yavapai County. So between Dan, the TAC, and myself, we are more than happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Well, the only question I have, and hopefully this will be one that all of us have, is have we gone to the public and presented this to them? Have they had input? Have they had a chance to be heard?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So that is the 18-month planning process. That's where the public will have full access to participate in it. That'll be the consultant that'll work with staff to engage the public as we've done historically, and then they will participate in that planning process.
So we're looking at probably sometime around May of 25
You are correct, sir.
for approval? Okay. Okay, so this gives everybody out there the opportunity to read this, take a look at it, see what you think, and get back to it. And many of the things that you're very concerned about now actually were presented years ago, but nobody was paying attention at the time. So it's a good time to get in there, look at it. If you got something to say, let us know, put it in writing, let one of your representatives, we're all elected representatives, come to, and we'll be glad to speak for you, okay? ADOT, same thing. ADOT, they change their direction all the time. So we want to make sure we have a constant communication with them and all the engineering folks up here on our side and down in Mojave, and make sure that we come up with a good document. The next 10 years in this area is going to be extremely critical, okay? In my opinion.
Is the document online?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, if I can address the call, or there was a comment made from the public. The current document is online at simpo.org.
Okay, so we don't really need a motion to move forward, do we? Or
Yes, sir.
we do
you
have to have a contract, that's right.
You do.
All right. Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Moved by Mr. Armstrong, seconded by Mr. Hughes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And since I saw somebody sneak in and thought we couldn't see him, Kevin Adams, come and talk to us about our tax. For those of you folks, this is Mr. Adams. Mr. Adams represents RTAC here in the state of Arizona, and he comes up here all the way from down below just so he can share his wisdom with us. And thank you.
Thank you. Just call me an old timer. I went and visited your old digs on Cortez, so I tracked you down. I found you. But glad to be here. We are ramping up for the next legislative session. First off, I appreciate all the participation at the Rural Transportation Summit. I thought that was terrific, and we really did a good job of advocating and addressing our needs with legislators last month down in Yuma. It is appearing to be a more and more difficult session coming up, particularly if we're looking at revenues and the level of funding that's going to be directed to the infrastructure. Every time there's a new budget forecast, the numbers get worse and worse. If you go back about a month ago, the legislature's budget staff was still projecting that they were going to be in the black for next year, not by much, but at least it was going to be on the right side. And then there was a very dramatic shift to a $400 million deficit projected for next year and $450 million for the year after. Now, I will say that for most of the going back at least through COVID, most of their projections have been way under how the state has actually performed. You know, we thought that there were going to be some really dire losses during those COVID years that never materialized. But with that said, there has clearly been a very significant drop in revenues, and that's it's sort of a mixed reasons for that. We know that there was a tremendous amount of a carry forward balance that was built up during the COVID years that was completely exhausted last year. So it's a little more volatile in that we're just dealing with future revenue collections. It was anticipated that there would be some losses because the state enacted some pretty significant cuts to individual income taxes last year. But those losses have been far above what they were projecting. Just in September alone, they came in about $150 million below what they had forecasted. The good news is that we're seeing some really good gains with corporate income tax. In fact, there was about an 80 million increase, so that offset just about half of what was lost on the individual income tax side. And then with the state sales tax, which is the other big revenue generator for the state, we're seeing a very modest growth, but of course we've had years of growth. So it's growth on top of growth. So for September, there was about a 3% increase compared to September of the previous year. So it's still trending in a good direction, but not nearly at the, growing at the levels from before. And in fact, even though there was growth, it was actually under what was forecasted. So for the year, we're at about 200 million below what was forecasted, and it's expected to be about 400 million over the course of the entire year. So what does that mean for transportation? I think everybody up on the dais there, you're very well aware that the permanent revenue streams that pay for transportation, mostly the fuel taxes and the vehicle license tax, they're not even meeting half of the needs that are out there. We have not been able to address that in recent years, but with the surpluses that the legislature has had the last couple of years, they have prioritized transportation with that one-time revenue that was available, about 650 million last year and about $1 billion the year before. So we'll have to see how the revenues play out this year. We're certainly proactive. We've got our priority list from across the rural parts of the state that we'll be pursuing. If in fact revenue does become available, I think regardless of the situation, it's important to put that bill forward because it demonstrates the level of unmet needs that are out there and the impact if those roads aren't improved or built. In a good scenario, we've got it out there to try to get funding appropriated to those projects. In a worst case scenario where there's a major structural deficit and the state's trying to figure out how to plug the hole that they have, we don't want them coming after transportation money to fill that gap. And so I think either way, it's good for us to be pushing and demonstrating the level of needs that are out there. So that's currently what we are preparing for the upcoming year. We also are pushing for some reforms and potentially some additional revenue to the Arizona Smart Fund, which started a couple of years ago, which provides rural governments with the opportunity to receive some state funding to help them pursue the federal competitive grants that are out there. It's typically a $4 to $1 return. When we're able to successfully receive a federal grant. In many circumstances, it's even better odds than that. So we'll be pursuing that as well. But that is essentially where we are going into next year, if anybody has any questions.
Questions, gentlemen? Is that you, Tom?
Sounds like the Grim Reaper just got here.
Bill, anything?
No, I just know that Governor Ducey's tax cut for income, like a lot of tax cuts, it takes a while to percolate through the economy to be able to generate additional attraction of business development and the consequential tax revenues and income tax that comes from that. So it's not a light switch. And I think it'll take a while for its effectiveness to be established. But in the meantime, yeah, we've got some big red numbers to try to compensate for that. So it'll be interesting to see how the state legislature analyzes their budget appropriations, and that's their primary job, is to figure out how to balance that budget. I don't think I want to be volunteering to be in those rooms.
Mr. Chair, Mayor Good, I concur. Of course, we don't know what that long-term revenue impact is going to be to those cuts. I will say that you go a couple years further back, and that's when there were some corporate income tax cuts, and there were some immediate losses. And as I indicated, we are starting to see some rebound back on for revenue collections there. So remains to be seen. But yeah, I think it is going to be a challenging year this year, and they've got some difficult decisions to make, and we'll do our best to try to defend the transportation revenue. I have not heard legislators talk about rating HERF yet. We certainly don't want them to get back to there. One concept that I'm hearing, and it hasn't, it hasn't gained momentum yet, but one of the things that they're talking about, and I'm thinking this might be worst case for transportation, is they're looking at all of the projects that were earmarked some funding over the last couple of years. And if that funding hasn't been obligated yet, they're using the word deferral, where they'll take that money back, utilize it for the deficit with the state budget, and then provide funding for that project in later years. A deferral, it's better than nothing, but it's still far from perfect. And this year's legislators can't bind the hands of legislators 2-3 years from now. It would entirely be up to them if they want to honor that commitment that the earlier legislature made. So it's by no means a guarantee, but it's better than nothing. I hope we don't get to that point, but that's what I'm hearing.
I know that there were a couple of years where there was a substantial amount of HERF funds being swept out of road projects for various needs down at the legislature. Aren't there some protections that have been enacted since then to keep that from happening to the same extent it had in the past?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor Good, there have been some protections, but they're statutory, which means that a future legislature can go in, and if they have the votes to do it, they'll adjust it. And that's exactly what they were doing before. In statute, there's only 10 million that can be taken out of HERF, and then another 10 million that can be taken out of the State Highway Fund, which is ADOT's portion of HERF, that could be directed to Highway Patrol. But because it's just statutory and not in the Constitution, what was occurring was when the legislature would pass a budget, they would put language in there that's saying, notwithstanding what's already in the law, we're going to take this much out of State Highway Fund and direct it to Highway Patrol. And so if the votes are there, they would have the opportunity to bypass any protections that might be in place now. I think what's probably more important, is that there's definite sentiment to not touch HERF. I think that enough legislators are still around that made that commitment to leave it alone a couple of years, that they want to follow through with that commitment. But that's far from a lock solid protection. So I'm hopeful, and I like the level of support that we seem to have from lawmakers right now. But of course, we'll also have to see how dire that deficit becomes and to what lengths they have to go to balance that budget.
Okay, now that you've gone over the bad news, can we have the good news?
Let's see. The good news is I think we're looking as if the federal government is going to continue to keep operating. We still don't have, probably with some continuing resolutions, we don't have a budget for the entire year. But transportation is not one of the holdups. I think it will be impacted by other issues. But it does appear that there's bipartisan support to fund the federal transportation programs at their fully authorized levels. And so doesn't seem to be as concerning as the state. And again, with the state, we're not talking about cutting anything yet, but we do have to watch where we're going with that, with those revenue levels.
And it's talking about the revenue levels. Does the state come up with an answer on what they're going to do about electric batteries?
They have not.
Okay, so that's still out there, and we don't know where they're going to be dumped in the rural areas, right? So there's a lot of things out there that people don't realize that we are concerned about that could happen into the future. The other thing is the fact the Highway Users Revenue Fund, with HERF as it's called, that is the money that comes from basically from your gas tax and comes to your local jurisdiction, your city or your town, your county, so that they can maintain and or build their new roads. However, it has not been raised in over 20 years, right?
Over 30.
All right, that's about all I got, Kevin. I appreciate your being here tonight. I'm sorry we moved the location on you, but you need to call Vinny in advance.
Glad I could find you and make your day.
There you go. Thank you for being there
you.
for us, and thanks for a great conference too. Everybody that went said it turned out perfect. However, it will be better when we do it this year.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We set the bar pretty high for Vinny and the Simpo staff, right?
Well, we're talking
Not that
about
it was me. It was the Yuma MPO and WACOG, and yeah, they did a terrific job.
Yeah, that's great. So, okay. I can't think of anything else. Anybody else got any other questions? I don't see any. Okay, moving right along.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, Michael Lamar. Regional development updates.
Good afternoon, Chairman Brown, executive board members. How you doing? I'm going to deliver a brief transit update. I promise it'll be brief, and an overview of some of our pending and proposed next steps. I think it's really important that one of the things we really want to talk to you guys about is that we're working on what I would term dual tracks. One is the maximization of the existing systems. The two existing systems are Yavaline and YRT, obviously. And also moving forward with what is phase 2 of the regional transit implementation plan, which is the next step in terms of providing services in and for Prescott. In terms of track 1, we're going to probably work with a transit planning consultant, Yavaline and YRT, on data analysis to help prioritize service expansion. Pedro's here to talk a little bit about the success story and momentum he has with Yavaline. I think it's good for the public and for the executive board to know. And basically, when you're building any kind of business or service expansion, it's certainly easier and more cost effective to build out from an existing footprint. We are looking at expanding services where demand already exists in and around PV, places like the Viewpoint subdivision, Quailwood, and not just because we like John Hughes, but also the possibility of some service in Dewey Humboldt. And also, at the same time, we want to look at YRT's current services, analyze the data, and make determinations about expansion of service in and around Chino for them as well. The parallel track is the implementation or the movement and towards implementation of phase 2 of the approved regional transit plan, excuse me. And that involves services for Prescott. And really, what we want to do is we want to explore service delivery options like an intra-Prescott system, very similar to what's going on in PV, commuter lines for workers, and specialized service lines like services for vets. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow with U.S. Vets and Carol Benedict about what they're doing and if there's ways we can collaborate. Charter school kids, as a charter school parent, I've been schlepping my daughter to school from K to 12, and I think there's real opportunities to work with Yavaline and YRT on trying to create some kind of environment where charter schools are part of this equation. Also, higher education students, all three institutes of higher education are interested in having transit services for not just their students, but also their faculty. And I think all of this will be coming forward in more detail over the next coming weeks and months. Before I go on to trails, Pedro, did you want to talk a little bit about your numbers?
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, thank you for having me. I did have some slides available. Maybe next slide, please. Oh, there we go. So if you don't know me by now, I'm the transit administrator from the town of Prescott Valley. We were tasked to begin the phase transit plan from SIMPO. The 3 goals attached to that plan are listed. I put a little small check mark on the one that we are still that is still pending. Part of the phase transit plan is to connect workers and job seekers with local and regional employment. The second is to provide access to essential services for veterans, older adults, and people with disabilities. And then the third is to provide service on already available resources in the community. So this is kind of looking to the regional aspect of this plan. So we're kind of 2.5 check marks into completing the goals for the phase transit plan. Next slide, please. Here's a couple of details I wanted to outline to you. So with the type of transit service that we're running, which is microtransit, again, not fixed route or deviated fixed route, you're looking, so our projected goal for the year from our third-party consultant was 9,000 rides, and we actually doubled that number. Average weekday ridership our goal was 44, and as you can see, it's doubled. Wheelchair ride requests were 687, and again, this period of time is from September 2022 through this last September, so a full year. Our shared ride percentage, so again, this is kind of a different way of doing transit, where we are using software for the service. It's the main kind of the beating heart of the system. We're looking at 46% shared rides, meaning that we have at least more than one person at one given time in the vehicles. Next is customer experience. So our average customer rating. So the nice thing, we actually switched software. We're at 4.9 out of 5 stars. The average wait time, we're looking at 19 minutes. Average on-time pickup percent, 88.3%. Average ride duration is 13 minutes. Distance is 3.4 miles. And then rides booked on our mobile app is 26%. So our service area is 12.5 square miles. And just to kind of give you a little perspective of that, I think you've all seen the map before. So next slide, please. So here's kind of a month-by-month ridership. This is again starting in September of last year through this September. It is 13 months. We had a soft start September 2022. But yeah, we completed the 18,000 rides, and if we continue this trend that we're on right now, as you can see, these last 3 bars kind of took us to that next level with our new software. If we continue the trend that we have, we're going to look at about 30,000 rides for next year. So a huge feat with what we have right now. So next slide, please. Here's some of the trip purposes for the microtransit service. You're looking at 41% employment. This number is huge. It definitely was a lot more than what we expected, and a huge driver of the service. Shopping is 23%, medical 13%, recreation 13%, education 2%, and other purposes are 8%. Next slide, please. Some of the demographics of the service. So adults ages 18 to 59 is 66% of the service. Wheelchair rides, 4% of that. Children, about 1%. People with disabilities are 14%, and seniors 60 plus are 15%. Next slide, please. Oh, that was it. But we are looking forward to next year, and again, a lot of things good that are coming for the service. So we're excited about that. Any questions?
I know I asked this previously, Pedro. You're not charging any fare charges now?
We are currently charging $2 for a regular fare.
$2 per ride?
$2 per ride.
And what's your cost per ride at this point?
So right now it's $0 as we're running off of a grant. So if you were to be paying this out of your own pocket for what we're doing right now in PV, you're looking at $80 to $88 per ride. But if you are looking at your local match, which this is heavily subsidized by the federal government, you're looking at about $41 per ride. So that's again with 18 rides.
So where
if
does
our
that,
trend continues at 30,000 rides, you're looking at about $25 after the subsidy.
So once you reach 30,000 rides per year, your cost per ride would drop to what?
$25 after the subsidy.
$25?
With what we're running right now, which is 4 vehicles and providing rides, totaling 30,000 for 1 year.
And you mentioned local subsidies or matches. What's the source of that?
So that's where Michael comes in. Michael Lamar has been partnering with or trying to seek these partnerships with variety of organizations and institutions. So
the nice thing with the CARES money is the local match doesn't really come due till July of 2025. Is that ballpark? June. So we need to secure between now and then private monies and hopefully some public monies to make the match of about $600,000.
That's for 2.
Okay. The keys are going to be to build these relationships with things like the charter schools and the U.S. vets and the Institutes of Higher Learning, all who are showing a tremendous amount of interest in transit service. Hopefully what we'll have is enough private sector or quasi-governmental sector, for lack of a better term, assistance, that the ask to the local governments is fairly minimal. And we need to do that between now and June 30 of 2025.
Yeah, it would seem that with the demographic numbers you have right now, 66% of your riders are of working age, 18 to 59. And by far the biggest number of riders using the service are for employment, 41%, by far the biggest number. So you would think that if the employers are benefiting from this service, then having them supported financially should be in their best interest as well.
It's an excellent point,
right?
Member Good. And you think about the breakdown of our community where Prescott provides a lot of hospitality jobs, a lot of hotel jobs, and a lot of the people that work in those jobs aren't in a position to afford to live in Prescott. I could see a situation where the hospitality industry or the hotel industry decides that sponsoring routes from PV and CV would make sense.
Yeah.
I'd like to add on to that. Oftentimes we hear from business owners where they just can't get employees to come to work. And then we hear from employees who can't get to work for whatever situation they may be in regards to having a suspended license, not being able to afford a car. And this has given these individuals who would not be able to go to work an opportunity to go to work, earn a paycheck, and then invest back into our community. So it's an opportunity that we would not have had before.
It's an economic boon in those respects. So I think that Pedro and I are both pleasantly surprised at the percentage of people that are using this for employment just in an intra PV route, when we know full well that a lot of people commute into Prescott from Chino and Prescott Valley, and that's not part of the equation yet.
That's right. Once we do phase 2, which is going to be seeing these vehicles down in downtown Prescott and going back and forth, it's going to be huge for our community. And it's just not people going to the bars to hang out and have fun. They're actually going to medical services, going to shopping, going to jobs.
Yeah, you saw the proofs in the pudding. Anybody have anything else at this point?
And Michael, going from Pedro's estimate of 18,000 rides and going to 30,000 rides, what kind of equipment expansion are you going to need to handle that?
Well, Tom, part of the 30, one of the things we've looked at too is the economies of scales of having some merger of the systems, the Yava line system and the YRT. Maybe not to your surprise being from Chino, but much to my surprise, the YRT system is already doing about 18,000 rides as well. So there's 36,000 rides in this community before we expand services based on demand at all. Jumping to the numbers that Pedro's talking about, I don't think are unrealistic in a fairly timely manner. Would you agree with that?
Sorry, last piece.
Fairly timely, or happen pretty quickly.
Yep. And to your question, so right now, so if you looked at the month-to-month data, the vehicles were underutilized because ridership hadn't been built up. So right now we can handle 30,000 rides with 4 to 5 vehicles. So, which is pretty amazing. But definitely, if we expand, we need to add additional vehicles on top of
I kind of missed those figures in the middle of it where you could already do it with the equipment you had, because going from 9,000 to 18,000 and then up to 30,000, you got luck on your side somewhere.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you.
Pedro, I have one more question. From the chart that you showed, this new software seemed to have some connection with an increase in ridership. Mm-hmm. So can you describe what the improvements in that software contributed to that increase in monthly ridership?
Sure. It's greed. The algorithm that is set up on the new Via Mobility app, it's greedy in the sense it's trying to maximize the capacity per each vehicle. So what the previous software was doing, it did that to a certain level. So this is taking us to where those vehicles are, on the move 100% of the time. So versus, the other opportunity too is that it's sharing those rides a lot better. So that was the other piece where GPS is a lot faster, the signal is a lot better, to where it is just making everything a lot more efficient.
Yeah, I noticed there was an increase in wait time. So does that have something to do with the software being able to look at who's asking for a ride and then trying to maximize the number of riders per bus to pick them up?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head there. And this is the software has only been for since July, so we've just seen the tip of the iceberg, so it's just been incredible.
Pedro, just one last question. The last time we talked here and you were before us, we were talking about Yavapai Regional Transit and their participation in trying to come up with some kind of a match between the two systems and coming up with, where you guys can become one, shall we say. Have you had any luck with that, or are we still just waiting?
Yeah, go ahead.
Chairman Brown, we actually had a meeting with YRT the end of last week, and they see the benefit of some kind of merger or collaboration between the Yava line system and the YRT system. And that's one of the reasons I think we probably will need a third-party transit consultant to look at how we can maximize how the routing is going now. But their brain trust is 100% supportive of the concept of having these things work in tandem or intertwined.
Funding is considerably different than the way your funding is. Theirs comes in basically off of grants directly from Department of Transportation and the feds, and yours comes through a grant program that's very specific on what you can and cannot do. So.
True, but there are, we've looked at some benchmarking. There are hybrid systems that use the 5311 and 5307. Am I getting those letters or numbers right? That work in tandem and conjunction that have been successful. So.
Okay. All right, well, we'll be interested to see some kind of result come by the first of the year. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Kind of put a time limit on it.
I get it. Routes and Dewey, John. I'm looking out for you. Real quickly, I'm only going to be up here a second. The other thing I've been working on, and I brought this to the TAC committee, and this is one of those kind of low-hanging fruits, not a tremendous amount of controversy, is working on collaboration for the creation of a regional trail system through the SIMPO region. We do a decent job, I think, of working municipalities to the county in terms of trying to make the linkages, but we're going to make a concerted effort through the TAC and some of our technical expertise at the different municipalities and with the county, and even with the U.S. Forestry, about making sure that there's linkages in the system so that we create, you know, for lack of a better term, an ecotourism product, SIMPO-wide in terms of trail connectivity. I do think it's low-hanging fruit. I think it's probably something that could be done fairly inexpensively, and we just need to get working on the mapping and meetings. So that's just something we wanted to bring to your attention. Thank you.
All right, any other questions, anybody? No? Okay, moving right along then. Brendan Stahler. Are you going to report on the meeting we had on last Tuesday or whatever day it was?
A couple weeks ago, yes. Mr. Chair, members of the board, Bren Stotler, planner with SIMPO. Got a few project updates for you. As you know, we have several major plans in process. I'm going to give you a few updates on 3 of them. Next slide, please. Sundog Connector Design Concept Report and Environmental Overview. Many of you are aware because you attended. We had the second of 2 public open houses on September 28th. That was held at the event spot in Prescott Valley. Really well attended with 199 folks signing in and lots of public comment received. That is all with our consultant team at AECOM as they are compiling the draft report. At that meeting, also the interim findings on the technical analysis of the alternative selection was presented. So there was a lot of conversation in the room, a lot of a lot of information flowing. It was a really good event, and I think that it helped us to share the updated analysis with the public. The initial draft of the DCR and the environmental overview are being developed now, and we do expect a final draft early in the first quarter of 2024. State Route 69 Urbanized Master Corridor Plan. Our consultant at Kittleson has been working on the existing conditions. That's basically what's on the ground now and how is it working. There's a sub-consultant working specifically on traffic counts, and after compiling a number of data sets, it was recognized that there were irregularities that happened during the COVID years because our travel did not look typical. So they've actually enlisted that sub-consultant to go out and develop new counts, get new counts at all of the intersections for the entire 17-mile corridor so that we don't have data that is affected by that COVID scenario. The travel demand model, baseline conditions are complete. That's basically how are people needing to utilize the Highway 69 facility. Future conditions are underway, which means they're going to look at what does future development impact, how does future development impact how that facility is operating. Public survey is coming up and should be posted next week, and we are currently working on future no-build conditions as well. And then moving on to ACT UP, which is our active transportation plan. Active Community Transportation Unified Plan is the acronym. We had a public kickoff last week, Tuesday, November 7th, well attended at the Public Works Ready Room. Thanks to the county for providing facilities for us. We had about 30 folks, including staff and the consultant team. And I just want to say that the enthusiasts, cycling enthusiasts and hiking and outdoors people that you would expect to be in the room were there. So excited to get that one underway. We are working with origin and destination data right now, finding out where people are going to and where they're starting from. And the consultant team will be looking at the gaps between those areas and looking for opportunities to connect both within our municipalities and across the region. The draft ACT UP network map is being reviewed by the interested parties that attended the meeting, and it is actually on our SIMPO website, simpo.org/ACTUP. We'll get you to the landing page. You can actually take a survey there to talk about active transportation and what you'd like to see in the region. And there, just all of the information on ACT UP will be updated as we get further into the plan. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Was done by a number of different agencies, including those of our local municipalities and county, and actually participants in the trail builders that we have in Prescott and the surrounding area. A lot of discussion was held on the internal trails that we have in the vicinity of the Dells. A lot was talked about with the Peavine and going up through Chino Valley, and then also the trails that we're looking at over on the other side of Granite Mountain. So anyway, it was very productive. If anybody wants to find out what's going on with trails, it's the lady to talk to right there. So
Good job.
thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Right. Folks that want to talk about the Sundog Connector and Al Carlo. Now, if y'all would, try not to cover the same topic or information that your predecessor or other people are saying. Let's not make it a beat the drum type of situation. Go ahead, Al.
Okay, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Board. Just looking at obviously the connector and looking at kind of let's call it prioritization. Well, I was at the 2012-2013 meeting conducted by SIMPO, and that's when you looked at, where do we go from here on the connector, and the conclusion of that study and everything was, of course, don't even address this to 2035, make sure there's over 230,000 people in our region, and of course, make sure that 69 is widened. And that didn't mean all of 69, but at least key things. So, as a priority there, I personally think that's still almost the key priorities. Looking at, let's say, a few things that related. Prescott priorities, financial priorities, I should say, and obviously I can't speak for the city of Prescott, but, we have the airport property purchasing. We have the idea of a couple of fire stations that we would like to have. And of course, there's the widening of 69. So those were, looking at financial priorities there. The other thing is a couple of the people, Mr. Lamar and everybody talking about, we're looking at this with this IGA, with the working, in fact, I'd like to commend the county, Prescott Valley, Prescott and everything for working on all this state park, I call it, but I don't know the exact name. I mean, it's Glassford Dells or whatever it's going to be called. Okay. It's phenomenal. All the feedback I've seen all over different groups and everything that's huge. And so is ecotourism huge. So it's huge for the people that live in our region and as well as ecotourism. And probably a 20-second comment, probably about 6, 7, 8 months ago, my wife and I were listening to the news, 6 o'clock news, whatever, and there was Joe Baines there talking about and had a drone presentation looking at all our trails and lakes and everything. But after he was done, the newscasters were just our biggest fans, so to speak. Oh my God, you got to get to Prescott. Ecotourism is great, this and that. So the question I have is, is there a conflict between the Sundog connector going through that area and doing this park thing correctly, I should say, or dynamically? So those were, concerns I had there. As far as the actual study, by the way, Vinny, great job of your group and everything and all the presentations. I've gone to all of them, and not only your staff, but ACOM and everything is very helpful. There's other concerns about the dynamiting. If we take one of those trails for the Sundog, what's the extent of dynamiting just for the gradient and all those type of things. But the other two things I'd question is, it seemed like it was always about a 7% decrease in traffic if we did the Sundog connector. That jumped to 20% at that presentation. And I don't understand the reasons that it jumped that way, the assumptions, I should say. And that was kind of surprising. And then people were stating what in Yavapai Hills, what we need in Yavapai Hills, back end exit and everything. Probably two things. One, an exit, if it was one, only for emergency fire exit, and that can be, dirt road, whatever, gated, and that would be great. We don't need another road and the traffic going through there. And the other thing, I saw some of the...
I'm going to have to cut you short. Okay.
I'm sorry. I saw some of the other posters saying we need another fire station or something to help Yavapai Hills. I think I said to somebody, and it wasn't even meant to be sarcastic, I said, are you kidding me? We've got the closest fire station probably in the United States. It touches our subdivision. So no, we need a fire station in Prescott, but not another one in Yavapai Hills. Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you, Al. Gary Anderson?
Just FYI, sir, I don't know if you guys could hear that beeping noise. Could you hear it from up there? Or so that just means the time limit's reached up. That's all. So just a heads up when you hear that beeping noise.
You can hear me.
Just give us your name and where you live.
Gary Anderson, live at 845 Flying U, Yavapai Hills. I'm on the board of directors for Yavapai Hills Homeowners Association, and I chair their Sundog committee. And I saw this document where SIMPO has provided two build alternatives for the Sundog Highway. Build alternative 7, which I'll call the half highway, and then build alternative 3, which is the full 3.5 mile highway. One of the issues we have with this is that this would be a gift to the Arizona Eco Development people to build a high density development here in Unit 9 that you guys are all familiar with. The numbers are greater, the number of homes that would be built there are greater than the 1,273 in Yavapai Hills presently. So for either of these highways to be built, the direct line to get to 69 to Costco and Trader Joe's is right through our community on Sunrise Boulevard, okay? People aren't going to drive to the jail traffic circle or to Hobby Lobby to get up to Costco. They're going to come through. Matt Bondi has been dodging the bullet for quite a while on this. We've asked him months and months ago as part of this presentation to provide the numbers. Now, SIMPO now is showing, I think it's 8,800 vehicles a day using the Sundog Highway. We wonder how many of those, again, this is a
good catch.
Yeah, being a gift to Giese, basically. If that is built, it's really going to change the dynamics of our neighborhood. And as far as also the location of it, in 2013, SIMPO tends to ignore that study, and I know that was mentioned before. The lowest highway of the 4 was 167 feet from our boundary. That's exactly where this alternative 3 is. Very close to our community, very close to Diamond Valley. The fire chief has been a proponent of a 4-lane highway. I mean, here's a 4-lane highway from the top of Yavapai Hills to the jail. Okay, it's 6 miles from the Watson Lake proposed fire station to the top of Sunrise, where this would exit this traffic circle. We're 2.3 miles, the current fire station, to the top of Sunrise, okay? Those fire engines and ambulances go through our community to do the calls that they have to. We're not waiting 3.6 miles. It's not a benefit for Yavapai Hills if a fire station is built there. It's a benefit for Unit 9 if it gets developed, okay? I want to be clear on that. And we've met with U.S. Senate representatives. We met with Representative Eli Crane from the House, state representatives, and they've all made it clear there's no funding for this highway at all. Yavapai Hills is pleased to extend an invitation to each of you. Meet at our clubhouse.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Anderson, you need to respect the time. That's all. If there's additional time you want to speak to someone, you can make appointments with any one of us. But there's lots of people that want to talk.
Okay, sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're invited to come to our community anytime. We'll take you up there on a quad and show you what you might vote to build.
We have, and we'll be giving you information as we move into the future. So, Mr. Parrish?
Not sure how this. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
A little tall. Let's see if this reaches me. Hi, my name is Mike Parrish. I'm the chairman of the Sundog Disconnect Committee. We've met with a few of you last few months. I'm at 3180 Bar Circle A Road in Prescott. The open house was in Prescott Valley, and Mayor Palgood, I don't think you were there, possibly.
No, sir.
It took about 3 months from the open house last year to get the report of what the boards were and everything that was at the open house in 2022. Well, this particular open house, they had a board there. In fact, I called into KYCA and brought this question up to Vinny, that a couple gentlemen ago, they said that it would increase or decrease the amount of traffic by 20 to 25% on Highway 69. Yet on that same board, they said east of the connection between Sundog Connector and Highway 69, it would actually increase the traffic 5 to 10%. Those were SIMPO's numbers. I don't know if you were aware of that. And I know you're a very strong proponent of the road, but if it's going to increase the traffic on Highway 69 in that area, how is that helping Prescott Valley? So that's the first statement I wanted to make. The second thing was,
did you address that? Take that to the SIMPO? Did you take to the SIMPO director and ask him about that?
Well, we sparred on the radio a little bit, but I want to see the final report, and that's what I'm going into next.
Okay.
Is the fact that you notice these nose stickers. We were there at the open house. You said 199 people signed in. I hope you trust my numbers, but there was 10 of our group there with these stickers on, and I gave out 194 more to other people. So it was over 200 people that were wearing these, and the Courier reported that. Miss Hudson did a very good article on that. So it was overwhelmingly no, and I know Mr. Brown was there, and you may have noticed a lot of no stickers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people are very interested in this, very much against it. We're really watching the timeline. We want to be sure that hopefully the open house report comes out before the DCR, which is the in the EO, Environmental Overview, as a design concept report, that we actually have a chance to look at what that report says when you go to vote as an executive board on this very important road. So, or highway. One other thing, there's a few of us here. How many people here are against the road? You just hold your hands up. Okay, I know people get called NIMBYs. They get called that, we don't want to build, we don't want this. I'm a very conservative person politically. I'm not a tree hugger, but this road is stupid. It's just going to help developers. If they build that road, you can just wipe out the IGA as far as the regional park. And as Gary said, it's just going to help developers fill that entire bowl up. We've got the auction coming up on the 21st. Hopefully we're able to acquire it. Thank you. Okay.
Mary Gunn. Mary Gunn. Mary Rebecca Gunn. There you are.
Good evening. Now, this is more of an emotional response to the Sundog Connector. I moved here from Maine in June of 2015. I found a house that I loved primarily because it had a backyard that was state trust land. I had a view at the top of Amber Road into Diamond Valley. It was a quiet, safe neighborhood. My backyard is populated with deer, javelinas, coyotes, raccoons, bunnies, and many, many quail. I love waking in the morning to the sun on the hills. The quality of life is what I sought for my retirement years. I have found a home here. I was told that I would never have anything but vacant land behind my property. Now I understand that somehow state trust land can be used to create a highway through my retirement paradise. My answer to that is no, please, no. It shouldn't happen. The environment as well as property values in that area will plummet. And I'm not only talking about me, I'm talking about the people who live in Diamond Valley, who would lose why they settled there. Now, I know some people may say, well, you could buy a house somewhere else with a view. Problem is if I have that road in back of my house, my property values go way down. And then I couldn't afford to relocate because the property values everywhere else are higher than when I bought. What is going to be accomplished by creating this connector? My sense is that it would cost many millions of dollars, and you wouldn't really create a solution to any existing problem. You're going to redirect traffic, but you're going to create situations where, in fact, you have traffic snafus all the time because of the change. I believe that there needs to be plans for growth. I believe in growth. On the other hand, I think we need to look at, when we plan, the environmental quality and the quality of life that's created with your plans. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Betty McKee? Betty E?
Oh, Betty, we appreciate that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good job.
You don't want me to get up and go on my.
All right. A good woman from Maine. I'm from Maine, so it's good to hear another maniac here in the dais.
The same thing as my mother had stated, pretty much got covered, so I do not need to.
All right, well, thank you. And, you know, a lot of you, I'm going to make a statement. I don't want you to get mad at me, but I want you to do your homework.
Could you speak up?
We can't hear you. State land is authorized by the state. For what purpose? To provide funding for schools. That's what it's for. Nobody ever said it would not be developed. So, Anthony, you want to come up and tell us about ADOT?
Mr. Chair, excuse me, Mr. Chair, members of the board, pleased to provide you an update. Previously, I mentioned we are looking at updating the truck signage on 89. We have that plan finalized on our side. We are cutting POs to get some of that signage updated. We've passed that plan off to the county as well as the city of Prescott for their portion to tie into that overall plan. And hopefully some of increased signage, better signage, will help mitigate some of those trucks that like to go down the spars. So that's in the works. As far as construction projects, the 2169 at Truewood and out in Mary Hughes's area, as well as the 2 on 89A are officially completed. The only real active project we have in the county is the I-17 and 169 deck replacement. And we anticipate have all those lanes open by Thanksgiving. And we'll probably go into a winter shutdown until the weather gets better for the paving. The I-17 flex lane, I'm sure everybody's seen that. And I'd remind everybody to, again, go to the website for any updates on that project.
A question, Tony, are they on time on I-17?
The I-17 flex lane on time. How do you want to answer that? Just a second.
It sounds like I asked you a political question. So, Andy, you got an answer?
No, it's not actually on time. One of the big problems was the original 404 designation for it. When the new administration took over, they reverted rules. And so we did have an extension based on the 404 permit for that project. So, so on the original timeline, no. But are they on time for their updated schedule? Yes.
Great.
What's the 404 status?
What is the 404 status? This
404 of the Environmental
Impact
Protection Act.
Environmental impact statement.
Yeah.
All right, so for upcoming projects, unfortunately, the Prescott Lake Parkways on 69, all bids were rejected. We are updating the design. The bids were a little more costly than we had thought, so we're seeing what we can do to bring those down through design efforts, and I think we're looking to re-advertise in February. So.
You're going to advertise them when?
February.
February?
Yep.
Chair, if I can interrupt for one moment.
Go ahead.
I apologize to the board and to the audience. I promised my 14-year-old I'd get him to church group tonight on time, and I need to leave at this moment. So again, thank you.
Go ahead, finish up, Tony.
SR 89, mileposts 339 to 369, which is Paulden Nash Fork essentially. We have bid openings in January for a rumble strip project up there. It's coming down the pipeline. 169 Grant Woods Parkway to 17 will also have a rumble strip project. We're looking at joining those two together, see if we can't get a little better cost out of those projects. So see how that plays out. SR 89 Little Ranch Road. It's a life HSIP project. We're in stage 3, looking to advertise fourth quarter of fiscal year 24. Also, the 89A TI traffic interchange on ramp. We're anticipating completion of design fourth quarter of fiscal year 24. If that sounds right. And then lastly, we also have a design for the roundabout at 169. And we're looking to bid that out. Currently it's 60% stage, but we're working towards that. Looking to bid that out fiscal year 25, second quarter. So, any questions?
Yeah, Anthony, I know that you said originally you had sent out to bid the widening on Frontier Village on 69.
Yep.
But the lowest bid came in about 20% higher than your engineer estimates.
The lowest bid came in 11.4% higher, but the bidder was not deemed to be responsive in his paperwork. So we went to the next bidder, which was...
Yeah, so that was rejected because it really didn't meet the requirements for a legitimate bid.
Yep. And then the next bid was, I think, close to that 20% higher.
So you just mentioned that you're working on a redesign to potentially lower the cost and then go out to bid?
We're seeing what we can do, yes.
So what kind of redesign would that entail?
What has been explored is some change, some drainage. There were some pipes and catch basins going in. We're seeing if we can modify those a little to help reduce some of the costs. Seeing if there's any other materials we can use to try to find a alternative that's more cost effective. And I think there was also a retaining wall in there we were looking at. So
So you'd still have the same number of lanes in
Yes.
the raised medians. But some of these other kind of ancillary components would be either eliminated or redesigned to reduce the overall cost?
We're not looking to really eliminate anything, but see what we can modify to reduce the cost. Yes.
All right, good.
Are you in discussion with the city in regards to these?
Not at the moment. I have not been.
Is that because the majority of the land is in?
ADOT right away, yes.
Okay, ADOT right away. All right. Okay, thank you.
I don't. Thank you.
Question?
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to comment and to follow up with Mayor Good's comment. I know all the people left that were here talking about Sundog, but one of the comments was addressed about the widening of 69. I think it's critically important that the board and staff and TAC highlight this particular project. When all is said and done, fingers crossed, I think we'll be sitting around 12 years to get 1 mile of highway widened. 1 mile, $13 million. And as you heard from Anthony today, they're still stumbling to get there. I appreciate staff's work. But right now we're looking at an 18-mile corridor from Prescott to Dewey Humboldt. So somebody with a calculator on your fun time, go ahead and calculate that out. 12 years, 1 mile, $13 million. And that required SIMPO's leadership to campaign for years and years and years. So my closing comment on that would be 69 is a priority, has been a priority, will continue to be. With all that said, easier said than done. We're doing the best we can.
Right. Okay, I'm going to move on to State Transportation Board report. Is Gary Knight on the air, or do we know Gary or anything like that?
I'm on.
That is end of his term, correct?
We know Gary, and
I am
he
here.
is in the meeting.
But I have to go to my own city council meeting, and so actually Anthony reported on the only item that was on our agenda in the last 2 agendas, and we rejected all bids. So I think we already went over that pretty well. There were problems with DB discrepancies.
But it sounds like the audio into the meeting room is not working.
Okay. In that case, I've got to go to my council meeting. That's all I got.
Up in 5 seconds.
All right, along with that, since we can't seem to get Gary on the line, we're going to move into adjournment. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Yes. Yeah.
I don't want to say anything. If we didn't have any technology issues, Gino.